In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. We are on page 25 of Discourse and Pragmatics, working with the exchange structure. Okay, we already began to talk about acts, which were the lower ranks of the conversation, and the lower rank of the exchange structure, it is better to say, which include these types of things like markers, acknowledge, etc., etc. Now we want to go a level up to moves. Let us see what is move. Page 25, the new paragraph beginning with Sinclair and Coulthard said. Okay, this is the third paragraph, I suppose, the second new paragraph of page 25. Sinclair and Coulthard said that these acts tend to be carried out in a fixed order of moves. So one act and a bunch of other acts constitute a move above the act. So this is the act, that is the move. One level up. They found that there are three basic moves. Three basic moves. The first one is initiation. The second is response. And the last one is the follow-up. What is it? An initiation from the teacher. So the teacher begins to say something. And after that, the students answer. The student answers. This is response. And finally, the teacher actually comes to say something else as the follow-up. So, there is something like initiation by the teacher, a response by the student, and follow-up by the teacher again once more. So let us call these three things as I, R, F. What are IRFs? I stands for initiation. R, in fact, stands for response, and F stands for follow-up, as you see on page 25. Now let us talk about these IRFs. Down page 25 and at the beginning of page 26, actually we have these types of acts. Okay, so line 1 we have something like move acts, and then to the right we have the function of each move act, and to the right of this function you have the example. Let us see. There are three, as I told you just now, there are three types of, in fact, moves: initiation, response, and follow-up. Let us see. Examples of initiation are like these: inform, direct, elicit, cue, nominate, check, and prompt. Yes. So, example of inform is gives information, and the example is to the right. The purple ones are the taller ones. So the teacher simply gives information. Line 2 says direct, means directive, means ordering. Okay, direct means director, comes from this word director or directive. Okay, so gives order. The teacher gives order. You've got to put them on this map. The teacher gives order to the student. Or elicit, look at me, elicit an answer from the student. Okay. Request, response. The teacher requests response by the student. Any other colors? What does it mean? I want to elicit the answer from you. Elicit the answer from you. This is something that the teacher does. Next is Q, Z, U, E. Encourages hearer to contribute. You just give a cue in order for that person to continue to have a response, because maybe he or she doesn't know the good response. But when you give a hint, or a cue, he will or she will continue to answer. Example, hands up. Don't call out. Hands up and don't call up. Nominate, names responder, okay? Kristen, Johnny, somebody else. When you say Kristen, Johnny, actually this is an initiation requesting for an answer by these guys with this girl or that guy, Kristen, Johnny, or somebody else. Next we have check. To check the progress by the teacher. All these are initiations by the teacher. Okay? Checks progress. Finished? Ready? Okay? When you say finished, you want to check your students' response. And prompt reinforces directives and elicitation. Go on. Hurry up. Continue. Okay? These are prompts. Now type 2 is these all were in fact initiations on page 25. Let's go to page 26. We have response by the students. Well, the responses are of two kinds, react and reply. Maybe sometimes a combination. Maybe there's an overlap. Anyway, react, non-linguistic reply to a directive. Not like this. Look at me. Not like this. When you say yes or say no, nodding, moving your head, or raise hand. Of course, like this. When you want to talk to the teacher, well, actually, they raise hand like this. What does this mean? In English-speaking countries, it is like this. Well, you have all your fingers up. Okay, this is the way they do it in English-speaking countries. But in Iran, you actually have this. In fact, maybe you call it sababa, because in Farsi we call it sababe. Okay? We'll call it like this. What does it mean? Raise hand like this in order to ask a question. So a student asking a question is like this in Iran and is like this in Canada. I have seen them raise hands like this. And if you are in Iran, it's like this. I wonder whether in other countries like Iraq, in Afghanistan, they could be maybe the same thing or different. All responses by the students could be in the form of reply, answer, okay, like this, to an answer to an elicitation, like this. The student could come to say purple, answers, okay, like this. And then finally, there's a follow-up by the teacher. And there are two types of follow-ups, accept and evaluate. Let us see. Accept shows head correct, shows heard correct information, like this. Yes, by the teacher. Good, by the teacher. Fine, by the teacher. Excellent, by the teacher. And evaluate. Evaluates hearer's answer. Good, interesting. Okay, so accepting an answer is one thing, and evaluating the whole thing that is good or bad is another thing. So we are done with the second level of moves, which constitute three parts. IRFs, the three types of, in fact, moves. Now let us continue with Yes, let us continue with one level up, going one level up. I'm done with page 25, nothing to say on 25, and I actually continued with page 26 on the 6 lines to the top of the page 26. Now I'm going to go to page 2, line 7. Well, the book says the combination of moves in the IRF structure is known as the exchange. So there's an exchange between the teacher, all in all, and the student. Okay? So exchanges are like this. The exchange is a series of chains of moves in the interaction. So a chain of moves, a group of moves together make an exchange. One part of the lesson, one part of the lesson. And finally, line 2 says, in the geography lesson, we have one exchange in lines 1 and 2, another lines 3 and 4, and another in lines 5 and 6. Okay, and so on. Exchanges then combine to make up transaction. Okay, transaction by the teacher or to the student. So what is a transaction? Transaction is a series of exchanges which includes a series of moves and which includes a series of acts. So this is something like this. Transaction includes a series of exchange. Exchange includes a series of moves, and moves include a series of acts, as you see on the diagram on page 26. Okay? Which is the next level rank up. Now, thus, line 1, 2, 3, 4 of page 26 after these responses and follow-ups. Line 4. Thus, lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combine to make the whole transaction, which is lines 1 through line 16. 1 to line 16. Okay? And the lesson is the last highest rank. Okay? On top of everything. Okay? We began with the move on the bottom and went up to lesson on top. Okay? There were 4 of them. It is the speech event that consists of combinations of transactions like that. So if you want to actually understand everything better, review it with the let's say page 26 and the diagram. And it's hard of course to see it, but you understand the location, the whereabout of it on the page, on the book and on the page. So we are done with exchange structure. Well, teacher and a bunch of students, a group of students, or one student, no difference, constitute a lesson plan, a lesson which has got this type of structure. Of course, I said lesson plan, no, not lesson plan, this kind of structure within a lesson, not a plan you are supposed to teach. Okay, this is the lesson, a combination of transactions, etc., etc. Page 26 talks about 3 types of limitations of IRF. And page 27 continues with good examples. There are a series of other examples like the teacher teaching. Okay? So example 1 is teacher teaching. We are supposed to go to page 27 and to talk about other examples. Let us begin with limitations. Anytime we are talking about a kind of approach, a kind of method, a kind of, in fact, plan, we are supposed to know and recognize and understand and whatever that is there about its limitations and the limitations within that system. Well, line 1, page 26 talks about limitations on IRF like this. The IRF model has certain limitations as a model of classroom transaction. Number 1, it does not accommodate easily to the real life pressures and unruliness of the classroom. It does not actually shows everything within the classroom, okay? The real life pressures and unruliness of the classroom, such as a pupil not responding to the teacher, but asking a friend to respond. Some students are shy. Some are not going to, in fact, challenge themselves. They want others to be challenged, to go on the challenging situations. Say something and the teacher says no. Okay? They just keep silent. Okay? Or a pupil responding the question with another question. You ask a question, and the student is going to answer. But the student, instead of answering the question, responds with another question to be answered by the teacher. Okay? This is one thing. Number two, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Line 5. Is that it? Well, it reflects the transactional teacher-centered classroom, in which the teacher is permitted line turns. The teachers actually have lots of things to say. What about the student? The student simply keeps listening without saying so much in the classroom. This is another point. And the student can have short turns in response, but cannot interrupt. When the teacher is actually teaching, he or she should, in fact, keep listening, not interrupting the teacher. Okay. And number 3, the IRF approach, as described here, is rarely used today. Okay. So, sometimes we use it. We are teachers, or we are going to be teachers, or we are experienced teachers here now. Sometimes you give, in fact, these types of, in fact, structures within your lessons, okay? So, it was explicitly restricted to the classroom discourse. So, out of the classroom, we do not have this kind of structure in our everyday speech, okay? And there have been adaptations of this framework. See, for example, Storm 1994, okay? Now 3 lines to the bottom says, although the structure of the classroom transaction is not typical of everyday talk, it is typical of transactions of a formal and ritualistic nature. Okay, ritualistic nature. With one person in a position of power over the others. So the teacher actually exercises power, practices power on the student. And the student has actually no power to change the lesson, to change the order of the lesson, to change the way the teacher actually teaches. He or she actually keeps silent, okay, as you already know. Now let's go to page 27 and talk about the different, in fact, kinds of conversations in everyday talk which look or resemble or are similar to exchange structure. Well, page 27. Line 1, they said, special types of interviews are like this. Number 2, trials in a court are like this. Again, number 3, the doctor-patient exchange are like this. Okay? So, exchange structure as in fact developed by Sinclair and Colfard, 1975, not only works with the classroom level, it actually works with other parts in our society, like doctor-patient exchange, like sometimes trials in the courts, mahakim, okay, and interviews. Some interviews is when you want to find a job in an office, okay, maybe there's a vacant position for some position. Well, for some jobs, actually there's an interview, and the interview is something like this. You actually go there and keep silent, and they are asking questions, and you are supposed to answer. Okay, these are examples. So page 27 actually talks about these types of structures, like the example with the conversation between the doctor and the patient, like this. So how long have you been having these symptoms? This is something the doctor says. This morning. What did you eat yesterday? What did I eat? The doctor says. I don't really remember. The nurse says his temperature is 38.5. Pulse is 1/10. Well, the temperature like this, and the pulse like this, okay, is 1/10. We have it, and the doctor says, well, have a think, because you may be suffering from food poisoning. The S says food poisoning. Okay, I don't know if this is the patient or somebody else. Maybe it is the husband or the wife of the patient. Anyway, this is one good example, similar to, in fact, exchange structure by the teacher on the geography lesson. Line below it, we have something like this. Notice that the doctor has all the initiations and the patients all the responses, okay? And the last but not, there are two other examples, like in the next paragraph. I don't have time. I am going to kill the conversation. I don't want to have a shorter, in fact, presentation for you. So I'm going to finish it as soon as possible. So the next paragraph talks about D, the TV quiz show. This is another example. When there's a TV quiz show, okay, you are there, and actually in the interviewer actually acts like the teacher or like the doctor, and you're supposed to be like the students, listening and answering the questions by them. This is another one. Anyway, we have this model of exchange structure which looks like this: initiation, response, follow-up. Initiation, response, follow-up. Sometimes, of course, we have initiation and response, initiation, response, initiation, response, and finally we have follow-up. Okay, sometimes there is an initiation, two responses by the students and finally a follow-up by the teacher. Well, there are different variations and everything is okay. So this is the end of exchange structure. We have to go to conversation analysis on the next one. For now, thank you very much. We are on the end of at the end of page 27, and we have 4 lines on the page 27 to